future.
Pickle.
Hello and welcome back to our This Week in Geek coverage of non-E3, E3, E3 Fest, whatever you want to call it. This is
Summer
the
showcases,
Summer
whatever.
showcases. Ken and I are back again. We don't even really have to do introductions. You've been listening the last few days. We have the exhausting show that we usually have, which seems to be the last 3 or 4 years. The Saturday has been the exhausting show because
if you count all the extra stuff that Future Games did, it accounts to about 11 hours of content.
Yeah. It's the indie. We've done indie stuff before. Most of it was beforehand, before the main show, but the indie showcase is basically the Saturday. It's the Saturday between the opening night and then usually Microsoft has always sort of been a Sunday show. I think even during E3, a lot of their stuff was Sundays.
Yeah,
for
they
the last
Sunday.
several years. Start out their week strong, I guess. Well, we are recording this before those showcases start because you'd think we'd have a bazillion things to go through, and we sort of
Technically we do,
but we discussed off air that for this, instead of going for a freaking hour like last time, because we didn't even realize how long we were going to go. It's just there was a lot of decent indie stuff. This is going to be the Summer Game Fest / E3 indie extravaganza year. Like this is clearly a focus, not just because a lot of companies are lackluster, which is it's there, but I choose to focus on the fact that this seems to be the year where indie titles have really come into fruition. A lot of people that were small dev teams that were working on things during the pandemic because they had nothing better to do, or they're like, you know what, there were literally some companies saying, hey, or some people that have coming up with games now that were like, hey, we kind of thought we might all be dead. So we were like, let's take a shot and start making a game. They started in 2020, and now they're finally done. And now they're all coming out. So while we have a lack of AAA titles and even AA titles from companies, at least so far that we've seen that are coming out, we've seen a crap ton of really cool indie stuff. And that has flowed into us having the hard decisions of what do we even talk about, which ones tickled our fancy. So instead of doing a full rundown of every show, because it is the Future of Play show, which is the one that's usually hosted by
the
VTuber, which I don't know, and to me
I don't either. The only thing I know her from is this.
Yeah, to me it feels like something you would have seen as like a fake person robot voice from like a 90s TV show, but sure, is Future of Play, the Wholesome Games, the Latin American game show, which by the way had almost as many games, at least 60% of the games that were the amount of games, as the Japanese indie showcase, which was crazy because they crammed them all in, and then the women-led games, and what was the four? Oh yeah, and then there was the Future Games show. Future Games, which is sponsored by Future, the publishing company, which was not part officially of Summer Games Fest, but it was smart to know that they had to air after. Because
it also like the women led ran like another 10 minutes between while Future Games was playing. So I had the women on this side and the Future Games on this monitor.
Yeah, there was a bit of
just
overlap.
making the last minute notes on the women, and then went over to Future.
Usually, like I mentioned in the last show, I was like, "When's the black one?" And I was like, "That's not me being crass. Like that's what it's called, is Black Voices in Gaming." And when you search for it, it initially pops up saying, Mix or the Gorilla. I'm like, yes, it's the same people, but no, it's not that show. And then I did end up finding that it hasn't been like formally announced like on all their platforms, except a couple of sites already got the information that it's happening on Tuesday, along with a couple other shows. And it's like, I'm like, well, it's run by the same people that did Gorilla, and it doesn't surprise me that they don't have anything up because they didn't have anything up until like 10 minutes before the show started for theirs. So and usually the women led in that happened at the same time, but they didn't. Instead, and it makes sense now that the Black Voices Gaming isn't officially part of Summer Games Fest, because otherwise Jeff would have had to post it on his site and have it listed. So what was interesting this time is all of the Saturday shows, except for the one sponsored by the Future Publishing Company, were all part of official Summer Games Fest, and they were all primarily, they had their own streams, but they were primarily streamed on the Summer Game Fest one. Yeah. So you could, for the most part, just sit and watch, a 4 to 5 hour stream. And just go through there if you wanted to, like we did, or as I did, watched about an hour and a half, was super tired and fell asleep, not because of the quality of the games, just because of how much has been going on in the past little bit. And I had a hard time falling asleep the night before because I was prepping stuff, and I was like, hey, I'm just gonna not be awake now, and then I'll just finish later on. And I'm glad I did, because I wouldn't have been able to pay as close attention to all the stuff that was happening, especially with the Latin American game one, which has been slowly in the last couple of years turning from what used to be, I think 3 or 4 years ago, they had their own, and it was like the first time they did an English stream of it. I forget, it wasn't called Latin American Games, it was something else, and it was sponsored by like the Brazilian government or something initially. And that was like, this is pretty cool. That's where we ended up getting the review copy of Horizon Chase Turbo initially. And then now it's turned into like a full feature thing, because that industry is really booming down there.
Booming, yeah. Like there was like half of the games that were shown were from Brazil.
Yeah, it's like Brazil. Yeah,
and you
Brazil,
could tell because the animation was freaking gorgeous.
Yeah, and it's not like, you think, oh, it's a South American. It's not, because there's a lot of stuff from Mexico, and people are like,
yeah,
well, isn't that part? No. It's not part of South America. And no, it's not even Central America. That's just a randomized term that people use for it. It's still a North American country. So it's like...
Central America is what people use if they want to be somewhat racist.
Yes, that's pretty much. But you got to remember, it's North America. It's the 3 countries. It's just there's not a whole lot from Mexico that's usually shown anywhere else, because they had traditionally not had a large... Like, they don't have a AAA studio there, really, at all. They might have some support studios, but
there's some really good indie devs that are showing up in Mexico.
So basically, Brazil is still the leader, and for the longest time, they were mostly relegated to making games for like the Sega Master System, or
the PS2,
or the PS2, or mobile games, and now computers and tablets, they've gotten to the point now where they've hit the affluence level where people can afford cheap computers that can play basic stuff. You can almost think like the mini PC boom, right? How cheap, because you think about it, if we can buy a mini PC for $200 Canadian or 150 American that can play indie titles. We were talking off air that I've got, a mini PC with the Intel N100, which has just built-in graphics, and I can play almost all of the indie titles that were shown that were like 2D or sprite-based ones at 4K. Then if you go down to like Brazil or Mexico, or places where maybe, a video like a 4090 is like a 2-year salary in some countries, right? If you do the conversion, especially because they blow up the prices in a lot of other countries where they don't have the same buying power.
Brazil, you can now import taxes and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. They can get a computer, a similar one, for what might be for us might be like $500 equivalent, but for them it's the equivalent of getting one of these mini PCs. They're able to just do all this stuff, and so PC gaming has really blown up. So they took the mobile gaming market and just went over into PC now, and that is where a lot of the stuff has been shining. So it's like that is probably the biggest surprise to me of the year, has been just how much stuff was there. I made notes for all of the shows, but I didn't delineate necessarily from each. So we're not going to go over everything shown at each of these showcases, because it's like 150 games. So, and some of them are like overlaps from previous things, or maybe slightly new trailers, but nothing new. So I tried to pick things that either were brand new world premieres that interested me, or ones that were maybe new to me, but maybe they have been. Somebody out there might do. But Alex, I've seen this. This has been talked about. It's like, yeah, but I didn't see it before. So
yeah, there's only one on my list that we saw earlier this year that I'm just like, just give me the damn release date.
So I guess I'm gonna go. My notes were in order of things on the show and things that were in. And everything that I've written down here is stuff I included in the trailer highlights that I put together. There will be a couple, especially ones that you can have picked out that I didn't pick out, or that I didn't necessarily not like. Just they weren't on my final list. That aren't in the actual trailer list that I put together. But I'm going to put a link in the show description for the Latin American games. Simply because there's so much in there that you could just, if you don't like one of the ones we picked, there's another one that's for you. The other showcases we sort of did skim through, and we know for sure which ones are probably worth showing and which ones aren't. But for that one, similar to the accessibility one, I want to make sure that we put a link in so you can watch it, because there's so many. There's literally one for every flavor of, it's like going to Baskin Robbins or an ice cream parlor and being like, I can't pick. It's one of those. Yeah. So I'm just going to start out with my notes. The first game that I saw that I liked from, I guess it would have been the Future of Play show, was Battlesuit Aces. It's a card battle game. This was shown at one of the previous shows. I just didn't highlight it last time, and I was like, it looks cool. It's deck building,
and it's the Battle Chef Brigade team.
I didn't realize that when I think I saw it earlier last week, and I was like, I sort of recognized the art, and I was like, oh, right. And I was like, I should have included that. So that's one that wasn't new to this show, but I did want to highlight. There's also the next one was All Systems Dance. That is actually Cassie of previous Terrible Warriors / Twig alumni fame, who had previously developed or been a developer on, I think it was Guacamelee 2 or 1, whatever it was.
Drinkbox.
Drinkbox. Yes, is one of the developers on this title. And it is a game where robots are trying to eliminate humanity, I believe. And the only way to stop them is to break dance and dance to the music to show them that you have intrinsic value. You make them feel for you by dancing. And I was like, you know what? This already looked cool, and I'm like, I may as well highlight it. And it's always good to see, somebody we know making a game.
Yeah. One of the things that showed up a lot for me was Abyss Cross Zero.
Okay.
It is PS1, PS2, like N64, that voxel style with anime girls, and it's an action game.
It's funny. I saw it at all these showcases, and I think I even saw it. I think that was one of the ones at the Japanese showcase. But I knew it was they have a segment for games from outside of Japan that are getting ported to Japan, and I was like, I think that was one of them, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to talk about it, but I have a feeling Ken will. The next one I wrote from that showcase was the Copycat game, which was the first person cat game where you're like adopted and going through the world. I played the demo on my computer and I like it. I uninstalled it because I felt like I don't want to get too involved with it because I think I'm going to cry playing it. Because it looks like originally it's from the perspective of an old lady who is adopting a cat in Australia, and she seems sick, and it seems like the old lady's going to die on you. And then you're
it apparently won a bunch of awards in Australian games showcases and whatnot.
And in the demo, you're forced to be mean to her at the beginning. Like you have like choices: claw at her or bite her, hiss and run away, and be afraid of things. And you're supposed to slowly warm up to her, and you're forced to make those choices, hard choices. And I have the feeling she's going to pass away. And then you're going to have to be a stray fending on your own, and you have to find a new family or something. And I'm like, it's going to end very happy. Probably they would not like, you can't make that game and then make the whole thing sour and dour and sad. But I was
Yeah.
like, you know what? And it was okay. It's a little janky, but it looks like it was going to be fun. And then I only had a couple more from this particular showcase. I had Discounty. That
That was next. That was Wholesome.
was it?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so that was so
I've
Copycat was my last one from the future.
yeah, from future, two that I want to highlight left. I've got Slay the Princess Pristine Cut is finally coming, and surprise, it's coming to consoles as well.
Yeah.
Slay the Princess is a very meta visual novel type game that blew up last year, and the developers were like, "Hey, we're building a new version of the game. If you've already bought the version on Steam, you will get that version for free." So good
awesome.
on them for that. But they're also doing a physical release thanks to their partner Serenity Forge, which is helping them develop it for consoles.
They're quickly becoming one of the best indie publishers, not like for digital, for physical stuff.
Yeah, for physical,
Like
especially after Limited Run is shitting the bed, and some of these other companies are not doing great.
They feel like their releases are widespread, like wide retail releases of stuff that like Limited Run would have done as a limited release. And they're not crazy expensive. The big one I see popping up on all the stores right now is it the sequel or something to do with what was it, the Cyberpunk game, adventure game, Neurodiver or something, or
yeah.
And like they've been doing some indie like RPGs, they've been doing adventure titles, and they're like, they have stuff in a collection that at another publisher would be like $150 collection, and they're like $70.
Yeah, 70 Canadian, like 45 down here.
Yeah, or they'll do like they will do a limited pre-order, but it's only like $100.
Yeah. And then the other one is Tiny Terry's Turbo Trip, and this game is friggin' hilarious. It's already out now, and I've actually played like 4 or 5 hours last night, and I was laughing the whole time. It is janky. It will be a while before it hits consoles, but because it needs some like TLC to kind of fix a lot of things about it before it hits consoles. But once it hits consoles, highly recommend for people that don't have a PC.
Awesome. I guess we should probably move on to
Wholesome.
To Wholesome. So I guess looking at my notes, then that means I have 2 games from Wholesome listed that I picked specifically, because there was some stuff that was crossed over from previous shows. I put Discounty, which is a pixel art, what starts out looking like it could be like not a farming game, it's a store management sim.
It's a dollar store sim. You're running a dollar store.
With very quickly devolves into maybe sinister
insanity.
It's not sure if it's you going insane or if there are other forces at work. And I put down store sim horror ? And my other note was that the theme song for it, the jingle, is the almost note for note the Junes theme music from Persona 4.
Yeah.
Like, when it starts playing, I was like, "Everybody at your Junes." And I was like, God, that's purposeful. It's too close. It's the same tone and everything.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's fun. I was like, I have to play because it has the Junes theme song, or close enough to it. Legally distinct Junes theme. Those are that one. And the other one I put down was, I wrote down, what was it here? My handwriting is terrible.
Squeak Cross, which is cross with cheese.
That's what I put. I put this. Yes, it's Squeak Cross, and I put down cheesy Picross, and then in brackets, this is a Ken game.
Yep.
And then
I was just like, oh, Picross, cool.
And then after I wrote that down, I wrote down, is this an Alex game ? And then I put an exclamation point back, meaning it's probably an Alex game.
Yeah.
So
The other one I want to highlight is Into the Emberlands.
Right.
That
Okay.
that is in early access 19th. It is very Don't Starvey in
Yeah.
how its
I, de-
gameplay structure is.
I debated putting that in there, but I was like, you know what? I'm not somebody who's into that type of game, but I was like, I figured you would probably want it on there.
And this is also done by Daedalic Entertainment, the company that gave us the Mimi Golem.
Yes. Let's be honest. At least they're publishing this because they are no longer developing games.
Yeah, they're no longer developed.
They traditionally always had a decent eye for indie titles for
Yeah,
publishing.
when they published stuff, it was always good. The only thing that they developed that I enjoy is the Deponia series,
which was their, I think that was where
that
they
was their
made their
name to
money
fame.
initially.
Yeah,
Yeah, like they took over the traditional like Lucas Arts game style
yeah.
in the mid 2000s when nobody was doing it anymore. It was like them, like they were doing that at the time that Double Fine was having trouble getting funding.
Right. There's a couple of others. I've got from the Fellow Traveler montage where they're showing a bunch of stuff that Fellow Traveler is publishing because they're a partner for Wholesome. Columbo and the Souls of Limbo, with it's like Paper Mario with Mexican folklore.
Oh right, yeah.
And then there's Pine, which is about a woodworker who lost his wife, and the only note was, I'm gonna cry while playing this game, aren't I?
That's the indie titles this year, man. Like that is like number one is like, okay, it's not about if you're gonna cry, it's how much am I gonna cry? Like, or is it gonna be one where I cry and laugh at the same time? Because those are the ones that cut you deep, because you find it funny and sad.
And then there's Lost and Found Co., which is Where's Waldo?
Yeah, it's pretty much what it was. Where's Waldo? Or he's not Waldo in England. What is he?
I forget what he is in England.
It's a different name. Wally, maybe.
Wally, maybe.
It's what I know. I remember hearing it was weird that like they didn't know what Waldo was, and I was like, but it's Waldo.
There's Pool, which is actually out now on Steam. It is Suika game, but with pool balls, and it plays like a pool game.
That works. Sure.
Then there's we'll talk about this in a different showcase, but SOPA showed up. This was the first time they showed SOPA, but they showed it in a couple of other directs, and we'll talk about that later. Dragon Settler, which is a building survival-y kind of game, wholesome-y game, where you have a pet dragon that helps you out.
Yep.
Kitsune Tales, which is just a 2D platformer, and you're a kitsune. It just looks nice.
It looked fine. To me, a lot of it looked like these look good, but I held off writing down like I'm going to highlight these because there weren't a ton of those that were like super unique. Or like the super stood out to me, but there's plenty there. Like you can always just look up the Wholesome Direct if you really want to check them out, because it's not. It's the shortest of the. I think
it's not the shortest because the women was like.
45
minutes.
Minutes. Oh, that's right. I thought this was 2, but no, this was a full hour.
Yeah.
Still, regardless, good.
And then now we're on to the Latin American showcase, which was like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
I have a whole page basically, but not a whole like not that it's long. Just I have notes. There was Heaven Crawler. I did play a demo of this, a little janky, but my note was it's Tunic meets Ico or Eco.
Yeah. There was a couple of Ico / Shadow of the Colossus likes.
But very like specifically, this was what if you're playing Tunic but they speak English?
Yeah. and it's probably not hard as balls.
Yeah, it doesn't look nearly as hard. But
Yeah.
then again, you can beat Tunic if you just turn on God mode.
True.
But that kind of defeats the purpose of a lot of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Something that came up beforehand was Into the Grid, which was a card battler with
oh right, yeah,
cyberpunk, and it's like Slay the Spire
yeah,
gameplay.
uh,
Only it's like in the perspective of like an old school RPG.
yeah. That's right. Yeah, I saw that too. Um, I wrote down Arco, ARCO. That's the Mexican pixel art JRPG style. I played the demo. You'll want to play the demo because the controls with a gamepad are take a little getting used to. I noticed something here. Have you played many of these demos at all from the Latin one?
I've just been downloading them and waiting
Okay,
till
middle of
they're
the night,
all
I couldn't
till
sleep.
till all the like because Next Fest is next week, so some of these demos will still be part of Next Fest, but there's also some more demos that are gonna come out for
Yeah,
Next Fest.
I'll say this. You know how in Japan they have a different control scheme for like
Yep,
they still use circle as like the confirm button. And
same deal.
no, no,
Oh God.
they. I noticed every single Latin American game that I installed, like from doesn't matter what country it is, like if it's south of Texas, what they use is square is confirm, circle is cancel, and then the X button is what we would normally use as the triangle or
Oh gosh.
yeah. So like opening menus and RPGs and stuff is the bottom, the cross button, and then all the confirmation is on the left. So you literally have to like remap your brain. That's the default. And I was like, it's weird using square for confirm, but it was every game, and it wasn't even just RPGs. It was like platformers and things. I'm like, that's the standard here. And then I realized what it was. They're used to using the Sega Genesis layout. So the A button is the one on the far left. And like the layout was almost identical to Phantasy Star, how they did the stuff on the Genesis, which is odd for an RPG. But I was like, oh, duh. It's I was like, okay, so you can map it however you want, but that's the default. So I left things default, but it was weird to me. Anyway, so once you get used to that, the game is interesting. It's basically a pixel art tactical RPG with I put Mexican motif.
Yeah. There's Amazing Crackpots Club, which is Pong meets Lethal League, is how I like to define it.
Yep.
Yep. You get like you have your characters and you're basically playing Pong.
Yeah, that's fair. The highlight for the whole day of all the shows for me was Naughty Geese.
Yeah. It's
Yoshi's
this
Island,
was
Donkey Kong Country, with like Disney pixel art.
And you're a duck.
Yeah, you're a duck finding your Gieslings, whatever.
Geeslings,
whatever. Yeah, but you find them throughout the level. The level design looks a lot like Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah.
But you can then use your little baby
Chuck
geese and throw them
Yeah.
like they're the eggs in Yoshi's Island.
Yeah.
And the pixel art looks like something that you would have seen like a Maui Mallard or something from like the Genesis.
Yeah. Project Timmy, which is Captain Toad's treasure tracker plus more stuff, and the boss fights are like rhythm based.
Oh, yep.
So it most of the gameplay seems to be like this Captain Toad diorama puzzle game, and then boss fights are something completely different.
I wrote down. What did I write down? Was this next one? I think I put down. Is it Rena? And then there was it's a 3D platformer. That's all I wrote next to it.
The Chikatori Legacy.
Rena something
One.
or other.
Yeah.
There was one that looked like a 3D platformer. I think it was like a collectathon game, and it was very briefly shown. So it should be in the trailer. The one that I wrote right after that was it Pipistrello and the Cursed Yo-Yo, which is the yo-yo platformer that looks awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's old school It's like GBA
Yeah, it's like
era
GBA.
platformer.
It's like what is somewhere. It looks a little bit like it would be an NES title, but with GBA smoothness.
Yeah. Some of the stuff that I want to highlight: Hollow Flowers, which gave me huge Double Fine vibes, and it looked trippy as balls.
Yeah.
And then Keylocker, just tell me when this game is coming out. God damn it.
I played a demo of that, and that is
Yeah.
one of the ones, by the way, where Square is confirmed. So you will want to remap it.
Yeah.
Because it is odd. I had a hard time finding my way to exit the game because my brain doesn't work like that. But it was pretty good. I got Boy Scout, which was a pixel art adventure game, which is interesting. Don't know if it's going to be for everybody, but it looks cool. It was like sort of like a semi RPG. If it looked like, what if Adventure Island was an RPG?
I have Road Out, which is a twin stick shooter meets rock and roll racing.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. My experience with rock and roll racing wasn't actually rock and roll racing. It was a knockoff that was with Mickey Mouse
Oh,
on the Game Boy Color.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. But like it has that same style of gameplay with the racing. And I was just like, ooh.
I saw that and I was like, okay, I'll have to check it out. A very short trailer, one of the shortest ones, but one of the cleanest, and like I feel like it's going to do pretty well. Was Super Crane HD. That is the connect like puzzle game.
It's Dr. Robotics Mean Machine.
Yeah, it looks like it'll play on anything. Like I looked at that and I'm like, this is the perfect like Steam Deck game. It's not going to use very many. Like you could put it on your Steam Deck and the battery will last like, I don't know, 25 hours. Like you could run it and just not worry.
Eagle Knight Paradox, which was Mega Man Zero.
Yep.
Meets Mecha.
Yep. One to keep an eye on for sure. My other highlight of their show was Codex Eternal Eclipse. That is a game that looks very much like Grandia 1.
It's playing. It's like an HD 2D game.
It's an HD 2D game in the graphical style and the camera angles and things that happen of Grandia 1, as in PS1 3D world with 2D sprites as your characters that you control, and dynamic camera movements and angles for when you're doing things. Very weird looking. That's one I definitely want to play a demo. I don't think there was a demo available yet, but it might be soon.
It'll probably be in Next Fest.
And then I only have, I think, one more from, or no, maybe that's not from them. That would be probably it from there. I think after that was...
Yeah, so I've got a couple here. We got Saboros, which is a meat placking... It's like meat plant horror.
Okay.
And you play as a chicken.
Sure.
Digital Exorcist, which is anime SNES style like mystery game, visual novel-y thing. So it like looks like a SNES NES style like visual novel.
Oh,
where you have just like the top bar is just the photo, and then you have the dialogue at the bottom.
Famicom Detective Club or whatever, that sort of thing.
Yeah, very Famicom Detective Club-ish. And then the last thing that they closed out the show with, which was Mariachi Legends. There's a new trailer out for that. Mariachi Legends is a Metroidvania done by the same people that did Nine Shadows, and beautiful pixel art. They're a Mexican team, and this is their next game, and I am a backer on that.
Okay.
I'm super excited. This it looks freaking gorgeous.
Yeah.
And it there's a lot more humor in this second trailer that they showed
Well,
off.
that's good.
And I'm very excited for that. That's gonna be a highlight next year when that comes out.
We'll definitely keep an eye out for it. I only have 3 more games to highlight from the last 2 showcases, or was it 2 showcases or 3, whatever we've got left from there. The 3 that I have are Detective Dotson. That is the pixel art detective game where you're in India and you're solving crimes, but it looks like again like HD 2D world, like you're zoomed. It's kind of weird. The characters,
it's like it's a detective game, but it also has platforming stuff in it too.
It's like, what if you took a pixel art dude, fairly detailed pixel art characters, and then put them in much more detailed world around, and you're solving crimes and stuff. It looked interesting. The other one I have here is Starvaders, which was the roguelike deck builder. Which that's all you can say. Roguelike deck builder. Which looks interesting. And the last one that I had, which was one that was announced last year, and they're finally showing off more, was Hermit and Pig.
Yes,
that's the RPG that has it's like, what's that? It's not Sanrio. What's that frog anime?
Sergeant Frog,
something like that from back in the day. It looks like a 90s children's anime, but like okay, almost like, what's that? Okay, I was too old for it. Was it the Busy World of Richard Scarry? I think it was a British.
Yes, I believe that is the name of it.
Like a late 80s, early 90s, like kids show for toddlers, but with the graphics. But then it's made by 2 people, and it looks like Earthbound.
Yeah. So the one big one from Albert, from the women-led one, was Albert Wild PI, and it is a stop-motiony detective game, but you're playing a cat.
Yes. Okay. I installed that demo because I didn't write it down as one of my titles because I wasn't sure. It plays on anything from what I can tell. There's no graphic options. It just plays. Now, was this wasn't the one. There was another game. Sorry, just didn't mean to interrupt, but it was shown, but I didn't write it down.
Yeah.
There was a game coming out.
Mexico 1921, A Deep Slumber, which was part of your highlights.
Yes.
And it's like it's a detective game with like PS2, early PS2, late PS1 era graphics.
Yeah. Now, which one was the one where the person was making a game and it was all like stop motion claymation characters?
That was.
I forgot to write down that was a highlight, but that was definitely one. I think
that was in future.
Yeah, because I didn't write it down, and I don't think I put it in the thing because I need to see more. But there is one there. If you end up watching, that is, it was, they show a person like making hand sculpted characters that they then put into their game.
Yeah. I mean, we can move on to future games.
Sure. I don't think I wrote. Did I write down anything? I wrote down nothing.
Yeah. So what I got is Nobody Wants to Die, which is an interactive neo-noir cyberpunk New York. That's
not to be confused with Nobody Saves the World. Completely different.
Yeah, that's coming out later this year. Parcel Core, which is bike parkour, and that's out on the 3rd of September.
Yep.
One of the things that that stood out to me for the Netflix games montage, which was Rotwood is going to be on Netflix games. And that was something from the Gorilla that we highlighted.
Yeah.
As well as Cozy Grove Camp Spirit is also going to be on Netflix games. Which kind of makes sense. That's a very mobile game.
I didn't talk about it, even though I think it's going to be cool, because I think I talked about it. Was it last year when it was shown? Was that a Ranger game?
Yeah,
which is Netflix.
like
Any game that you can play with a control with arrow keys is basically going to be on Netflix. It seems.
Yeah, seems like it. Motor Doom, which was described as Tony Hawk meets Vampire Survivors.
Nice.
And then want to highlight Sacrifier. The playtest got shadow dropped, so that is out on
nice
PC, so you can play the playtest for that. Sunokuni, which is Hotline Miami with a sword. And it looks gorgeous. It very Hotline Miami gameplay wise. It's just you have a sword. That's it. And I wanted to highlight Casting of Frank Stone. That is the that was already shown off ages ago, but that is the Dead by Daylight Supermassive game.
Yeah.
And it's a supermassive game. You know exactly what you're getting.
Exactly.
And then Nico do Deruko. It is Donkey Kong Country meets Crash.
Exactly. And this is just like, when you think about everything we've talked about, it's like a fifth of the games, maybe less. That's how much was shown here.
Yeah. And then I just wanted to say Woodrunner Games is teasing their first game, and that is from some of the ex-animators and devs of Cuphead.
Which will be something we definitely keep an eye on.
Yeah. Something with frogs.
Yes.
That's all I can tell. It's just like, okay, it's something with frogs.
Exactly. So that's I think that's pretty much everything, right? That at least that's not everything that was shown. That's everything that we really wanted to focus on, because otherwise we'd be here the whole day just talking about it.
We'd be here for 2 friggin' hours, and then Xbox would be running in like 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So I will include the link to the Latin American one because there's just so much in there. But we pretty much covered the bases of what would probably be considered the most important stuff shown at the other showcases. I guess that's pretty much it. This is going to be a more straightforward episode in that regards. We will, get back here probably tomorrow with whatever.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed that Xbox has some really, really good stuff to show. There's going to be some cringe stuff probably, but I have a feeling this is really going to be the pick-me-up we need for the rest of the gaming year. Hopefully. They got to have one good showcase in like 10 years.
And then we have to suffer through the PC gaming show.
PC gaming show.
I mean, we're not going to watch it live because we're not masochists.
I might. I don't know. Yeah, but maybe not. We'll see. But we'll be back probably tomorrow with more of the Prototypes gaming news right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.